check this out. PCV valve. What to do when your Mercedes starts whistling? As fun as that may sound, it's really not good for your car. It's danger to the manifold. In this episode, I will show you how to fix the positive crankcase ventilation in a Mercedes M276 engine, which is common in mid-10s, GLE 350, and E350. For example, I was looking around YouTube for videos about this procedure. Although I found some, I didn't find any good one. Maybe my Google foo was not very good, but I didn't find a guy doing it by the book, by the service manual. In this show, I will show you how to assemble the PCV, the high pressure fuel pump, fuel lines, air intake, the cowl, and whole shebang. I was really frustrated when I was taking this car apart, so I didn't film that part. But if you want to see how to disassemble to the point where you can replace the PCV, you can play this video backwards. Yeah, it's easy. Technology. I have taken this engine upstairs apart quite a bit. I took the intakes off and I disassembled the fuel pump, fuel lines, and the wiring harness on the passenger side. See, there's some oil leak there. Don't worry about that. There's always oil leaks. It's an old car. Notice that I have taken out the heat shield for the exhaust and some brackets. Wiring harness, I pushed it all the way down, and I have taken off the most of the cowl here, and I have lifted this fake firewall up from its brackets and pushed it back to make some space. There is extremely little space here. Here's the end of the camshaft, where the breather goes, or the oil separator. And check this out. Here's the other camshaft. And this cam is turning the mechanical high pressure fuel pump. I'm trying to show you where the bolt holes are. Notice I have plugged the fuel lines because cleanliness is extremely important here. Here we have the offending parts. Here's the oil separator. It attaches to the end of a camshaft. Oil separator cover bolts on top of it. This whole thing bolts to the back of the passenger side head. You see there is an O-ring is attaching to the PCV pipe that goes back to the intake. When you remove this from the vehicle, it may be stuck a bit and need a little bit of notching, and the PCV pipe comes out with all of the wiggle. Genuine Mercedes part, and then an aftermarket, a little bit cheaper part. And see, there's a difference that you think there's a difference here, but not really. So this seal hole looks smaller than this one because it's a bit tight. It'll bend when you push it in, and it'll seal better. This is wore out and wallered, and you can see the wear pattern here in the end. I'm starting by installing this centrifuge. This goes to the end of the exhaust camshaft. It's easiest to put this bolt in using an E10 socket, like so, and hold it with your finger with the socket, and then stick it in. And finger tighten it. Next I'm using I tacked on tiny torque wrench set to 6 newtons because this is a German car. Click. Second stage of torquing is 90 degrees angle. This bolt can be reused. It's not a stretch bolt as such, even though it's tightened to an angle. I am eyeballing it to 90 degrees. First, my wrench is straight up. And before you know it, it's in 90 degrees. There it is. Next, I'm installing the centrifuge cover. So this has 4 bolts. They are torqued exactly the same way as the centrifuge itself. I lubricated the centrifuge and the seal with a little bit of engine oil, and I'm just gonna stick it in. Of course, you need to remember to clean the sealing surface first. There are basically 2 reasons for changing this PCV contraption. One is it can leak oil, and the other one is it can start leaking vacuum. Put it to 6. First I'm snugging it. And by snugging, I squeeze the seal. This is total braille work. Okay, I'm starting from the bottom. Click. Now top corner. Click. Another top corner. Click. And the center corner. Click. Now they go to 90 degrees. I'm starting from the bottom. This one I'll start horizontal. And vertical is 90 degrees. This one I'll start vertical. And horizontal is 90 degrees. And so forth and so forth. Now we can see the next stage, which is connecting this PVC hose, PCV hose. I'm sticking a flathead screwdriver here to help it go in. And it's there. Check this out. It's fixed. Now we just need to reassemble the rest of the engine. Here's the high pressure pump body. It installs to the cylinder head with 4 bolts, and there's a torquing sequence. I will show it a little bit later, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4. In addition, there are a couple bolt holes for holding the crash plate. Here is the side of the actual pump, and it looks like it's scratched all to heck, but this surface is not a sealing surface. The sealing surface is here on the inside, and this has to stay absolutely clean and undamaged. This end wraps over the camshaft, and the mechanical pump works so that there's this roller lifter with straps in. There's a tab and a corresponding groove. So first you have to install this torque and then drop in the roller lifter or plunger so that the roller is facing the camshaft like so. This action, when the engine is running, is invigorating the fuel pump. This stuff needs to be clean. I mean, this is not like surgically clean like the high pressure lines and the high pressure pump itself, but clean. And now it would be a really good time to replace this very expensive plunger, but it seems to be still very good, no damage at all, and we'll reinstall it. There are two seals which need to be replaced. These O-rings, these seals, were actually pretty expensive and a bit hard to source. The O-ring and the profile seal, which drops here, they will need to get oiled before installation. And don't drop these. Please don't drop these behind the engine when installing. The high pressure pump, now would be the perfect time to change it, but it is expensive also, so I'm not gonna do that. This fuel side has to stay absolutely clean, so plug the holes with whatever you can. Clean, lint-free, that's the most important part. Then replace this seal. This is gonna be $30. This is expensive, but this is a Teflon seal. It goes in dry, and that means that this sealing surface inside needs to be dry also. So again, this is the engine side and not the fuel side. So you can wipe it clean, and then when installing it needs to go straight. So set it straight to start with, and then start torquing the panhead screws, which also need to be changed. They're cheap, they're like $150 per each, but you tighten them half turn a time, and half turn, half turn, half turn, half turn, until it is all the way in, and then you can torque it with a torque wrench. But the idea is that this doesn't go in crooked, damage the seal or the sealing surface. Profile seal, panhead bolts, and the black and the green seals. This is one way to protect your parts from getting dirty. Vinyl gloves. The crank needs to be at 40 degrees. So honestly, I've watched a few YouTube videos about this procedure. None of them mentioned this. And I read some YouTube comments, why can't I get my fuel pump back on the way I took it out? It's because your crank was not in the correct position. So there's there are degree marks on this damper here, which of course is not in the position to show them now, but trust me, there's a very large print 40-degree marker which is now pointing the tensioner, belt tensioner. So when the marker points the belt tensioner, flat of the camshaft is pointing the plunger in the high pressure pump. The cam lobe is clean. Bolts go in these holes, and notice the oiling hose over there where the profile seal goes. Moving the cam lobe gently. Here is how it goes. I'm tilting it over camshaft, sliding in, and this bolt goes in hand tight first, and I got a new clean as a whistle E10 just for this purpose. And then 3 more. Hey, it fell on the floor. I got it out with a magnet. Would have been much worse if it got stuck on the splash shield. All right, one more. And it goes to the bottom, and it's a bit hard to reach. I should probably use both hands. One to catch the bolt. Check this out. Here's the torque sequence. The one I just bolted in last is number 1, then driver's side 2, top 3, and bottom 4. They go first to 1 Newton meter, and then to 14. My torque wrench hardly registers 1 Newton meter, but I mean basically it means that you snug them finger tight, or even less than finger tight. Okay, top, bottom, top, no, left, right, bottom, top, whatever. But I mean, this, at this stage, I'm just snugging them first. Second one is driver's side. Bottom. Next I will loop this plunger lifter into the groove. There it is. And seal goes in dry. Believe it or not. Plug to the fuel pump looks like this. It's blue. And it is 100% more easier to plug it in now, because the socket is on the bottom side. Goes in so, like so, clicks in. These panhead bolts are E40s, and they do need to get replaced. And the bottom one is gonna be very interesting to get in without dropping it. almost dropped it. Maybe taping this bolt to the bit would be helpful. This has to go in straight. These the sealing surface here in this pump body is precision machined, and the O-ring is also delicate, so I will handle it delicately. We're supposed to do this half turn at a time, and both when closing and when removing the bolts and tightening them, you're supposed to go half, 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 half with these two bolts. But I'm so deep in there that I'm putting it under a tiny bit of tension first and making sure that the pump is going in straight. Looking at it from the front. I taped this socket extension so I can see half turn 1 and 2 at a time. Since my camshaft is in the correct position, this doesn't take a lot of turns. That was quarter turn, and this was quarter turn. That's pretty good. Good job, me. Okay, now I'm torquing the fuel pump to 14. First, snugging it. Right. I hope I can show it to you here. Those are the panhead bolts. This is not the sealing surface. The sealing surface is in there. These fuel lines are attaching with this. The fuel line ends are like so, and they are tightened without any gaskets or anything, so these need to be extremely clean. Don't use any cloths that would leave lint on them or anything. Mercedes has their own part number for the cleaner, but I just kept these extremely clean and in a plastic bag, and I'm installing them very carefully now. The low pressure fuel line has a connection here to the braided line coming from the low pressure pump, and it snakes around here and goes into the fuel pump. And now the trick is, when you start this, you need to have this whole thing straight and in position so that it goes in here without any resistance. Wiggling it gently and leaving it loose for now. Now, here is a bracket which needs to be, it has a bolt, and I will install that once I have wiggled everything in place. The high pressure line is a bit tricky because it goes to multiple places, and you need to get it into the fuel rail and the pump without damaging these cones. You need to bend it a tiny bit, then you need to get it into the other fuel rail. You need to get the brackets also around the line, because it's really hard to get those in post fact. This low pressure line bracket takes a short pan head, and all of these brackets do have torque specs. And these are pretty much all 9 Newton meters. Click. Now I only need to torque the braided line, and that is straight 15. And for that I'm using a small torque wrench because I can fit it in better. Torque procedure: first tighten to 15. I am marking here where my peak of this bolt is, and I'm getting the next flat over. That's 90 degrees. That's 90 degrees there. All right. And the second flat. If the crowbar is in 90-degree angle to your torque wrench, you don't need to do any math. But if it's not, you will. If I damage these surfaces here, it is going to be a disaster. I'm doing flat to peak and flat to peak. Now I have tightened all of them. Now I have a load of miscellaneous. Yeah, I have 3 brackets to find where they go, and a load of miscellaneous bolts. So I have these smaller what is it? And these smaller E8s, and they are the same size each. And then I have 2 different sizes of pan heads, which are T27s, and I need to find the right place for each of these because I didn't mark them down. So I dropped this, or pushed this wiring harness bracket behind the engine. I pushed it down. I never disconnected it from the wiring harness, and you can see there are 2 bolts This is where two band heads go, and they attach here. This bracket has band head bolts, and I'm using T27 with an extension to get some reach. When removing, this is a little bit unpleasant, this bracket. Okay, I found it with my finger. I'm going to use a tape trick with this. Because this tool is not magnetic. Not to lose this bolt. I'm wrapping tape around it, sticking it into the hole. It's much lower than you think, always, boys. But not too low. If you go too low, that's a mistake. Sometimes it's a happy mistake, but not always. It depends on the mood and lubrication and the angle of insertion. And my angle of insertion was a little bit incorrect. I needed to lift the bracket up with my other hand to get this bolt underneath there. Now I need to get that tape out also. I am not bothering with the torque wrench here. Not that important, as long as I don't strip anything. Okay. So bracket here, there, there, there. And for no practical reason that I can think of, one of these bolts is pan head. Guess which one it is? It's this one. There are two rubber insulators. This is the one that goes behind the bump housing in this orientation. Let me check that I don't have any wires dangling there first. Okay, I need two hands for this. I'll show you later. And you will feel it when it's there correctly. You notice back here, these are the two bolt holes for the crash plate. So I can see that this insulator is in the correct position because I can see those bolt holes. And this is how it is. The next part is this fuel pump insulator, but it goes there snug. And then the next job is to install this crash plate. Crash plate goes, if you look from behind the engine, it goes in this position, and it is a little bit unpleasant. So it has these two bolts here and a bolt here and a bolt on the top. So only the bolt on the top is easy. The rest are, you need to go with feel. And these are E10s. And then in addition, there are several wiring harness attachments here. One which I managed to break the zip tie, so I need to put a new zip tie on this. The other two go here, and I think one here also. And those I will need to push in. So these are really difficult to get out. So when you unbolt this and you feel, it's still attached to something, and it's attached to these wiring harnesses, and you need to pry them out while behind the engine there, and do it blind. And a screwdriver or something, a crossfoot will help you do that. And before starting, do a double check of everything, so this won't be visible anymore. So the PCV line is connected. Try to remember if you have attached everything. Yeah. Harness is there, loose, and I will pull it up as I go. There are two different sizes of crash plate bolts, thin and thick. They both have the same head. The thick ones go behind and the thin ones go to the passenger side. I'm starting to squeeze the crash plate in, which is not hard without any wiring harness on the way. I'm starting here on the top a little bit to get it going. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Then trying to reach my hand on the back for these two bolts, and this is tight. No, yes, no. I'm using an 8mm ratchet. Okay, what is this? Go away. Once the ignition and the injector wiring harness is out of the way, this is very accessible. Now the one on the bottom is less accessible. So here's the ratchet. The crash plate is bolted on. And over here, and now I need to plug in all of those zip tie thingies into the wiring harness. I need to pull this harness out of here. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I figure this is slightly easier if I attach this bracket first that holds the wiring harness up. It goes here. 2 bolts. Bolted it on very loosely so that I have wiggle room here. Somehow I feel that starting with this one is the easiest. What do you think? Now I need to make sure that nothing is tangled up, and I can plug in the rest of the wires behind there. I think I did a pretty good job with it. So there's this large socket that goes on the topmost hole. There is the injector harness, goes to the next one, and then this whole big harness plugs in behind. And I think I may have only one dangling there that I can't see. I'll try to push it in, but yeah, it's all braille. I'm tightening this bracket here now. I mean, these are technically 9 millimeters. Click. Two bolts. Heat shield for the exhaust, and I took this out just to get enough room for my hands to get behind that crash plate for the lowest bolt. And I don't want to damage that O2 sensor wire, so I need 2 hands again. needs a little bit bending to get over the O2 sensor. And this can be done with one hand. There are two longer bolts in the front. There's one short bolt that bolts to the bracket we just installed. Up here, there's a hole somewhere, bolt hole, and it's super easy to drop. Maybe this is a way to get it aligned and started. You have to pull the heat shield up and push it back towards the engine. I need to remember which way these things go. This is a good time to change the coils. At this point, you are where you would be if you were just changing the coils. Except you don't need to take the whole of the intake manifold out. Injectors plug in, and the last of the coils. And the big plug in the end of the cylinder head. These two plugs go in later, and I do need to replace two zip ties that I have to cut off here. And make sure all of these plugs are locked. Alright, the harness is secured. Used a couple of zip ties here and there. This one I had put around the other wiring loom because the bracket, very thin plastic bracket broke. Then this big cable connects to with the clip on top of the crash plate. I have still a few plugs to go in the front of the engine, and another zip tie here to be replaced. So this plugs right here. And this ground wire bolts to the cylinder head, the valve cover. So for changing that one stupid part, you need to keep on changing a lot of parts. I think I spent a couple of $100 in all these seals and all these extra parts. So these are the lower manifold gaskets. You don't necessarily need to take the lower manifold, intake manifold off, and you can save changing these gaskets, which cost me $60. But here's the Victor Heinz part number, and these go on the bottom of the intake runners, and there's 6 of these needed, $10 each. Between the intake runners and the intake plenum, you have another set of gaskets which need to be replaced, manifold gaskets. And here's the part number for those. And these are also aftermarket parts. And with the money I am getting from this video, per my experience, I can fund one of these seals. So these go up either way, upside or downside up, upside down or downside up. But they have a little tab which goes into the groove. I did wash this with carb cleaner. All right. intake runners. Now, this is where you would be if you were cleaning the intake valves. And I would clean them, but they're actually surprisingly clean. For 120,000 miles direct injection engine, I mean, I didn't feel a big need to clean them, but I did vacuum all the dirt out. The driver's side goes in first, naturally, and I have the bolts in there ready to go. There are 4 of them. One in each end. 2 in the middle. Putting this first finger tight. There's an alignment tab in both ends, and there are also 2 bolts that connect these intake runners together. And note that this is exactly the opposite order of business. Disassembling and assembling this stuff. 9 Newton meters. There's no prescribed order for tightening, but I go by convention, middle out. Or center out. I need a little bit longer extension. 1, 3, 2, 3, 4. Last click. This clip, which I almost forgot, is for EGR, which I don't have in this car. So, but it's necessary for correct spacing of this, how these intakes sandwich together. Now is a very good time to take a break, take a breather, think what you're doing. I have a new set of intake manifold gaskets, which obviously go over these holes. There's a tab which lines it up. Like so. Now is a good time not to drop anything to the intake, especially any hardware or tools. Bolts, perfect time not to do that. Next, we will install this intake plenum contraption. You could take this off the vehicle together with the air filter, but I didn't because it's easier to do it in 2 pieces. You just need to undo this clamp for the throttle body. There are 2 bolts at the center, 2 bolts in the back, 1 deep in there. They're all E10s, and there are various sensors and such to plug in. They're two well hidden on the passenger side. The PCV pipe in the front. Another vacuum line, another vacuum line, sensor, another vacuum line, and sensor, and this vacuum line. This yellow black vacuum line goes behind there. I will show you where it goes. I will clean it up with carb cleaner on the inside because it's full of oil naturally, and I will get ready to install it. The bolts thread obviously here are the middle ones and here are the back ones. I'll make sure all the wiring, vacuum hoses, none of them are pinched before I bolt it down. Here's a plug which I want to get in place. Here's another one. This comes out, this has this squeeze. Squeeze it and pull it out. It's also easier to take off when the when you have lifted it up a bit. Okay, now I need to get behind here and push in this vacuum line. This goes in completely blind, and it's in there. There. Notice that I'm doing all of these lines before I'm tightening. Here's another one with the squeeze, vacuum line with the squeeze. Okay, come on. I'm lubing it on the inside and outside with soapy water. With lube it goes in much easier, and it's locked. Next I have another plug here. It's missing a locking mechanism like this one. So put two zip ties there, one to hold the other one in, and I wrapped it around here, so I hope nothing else goes there. This could use some soap also. One more vacuum line here. I will install these center bolts first. Behind here, this is why we had to take off the center part of the fake firewall. Can't get there, at least very easily, without doing that. I have a series of extensions and bits here. Now is a perfect time not to drop your tools behind the engine. These go to 9. Yeah. Okay. Now all the bolts are on. Next I'm putting this airbox on. So you can see those hooks, where it hooks up to, and then it bolts on here and here. Sensor plugs in here. This airbox gets these bolts. And the last, but not least, I'll need to make sure that this intake hose is correct, and I will need to reclamp this clamp here, which is easier said than done because I don't have the tool for it. Get into the groove. Yeah, it's almost correct. It is almost correct. Yes, sir. What do you think? Now would be a good time to start up the engine. At least start the low pressure fuel pump and see that we don't have fuel leaks. But let me first put this cover on. This is where these bolts are hiding. Alright. Now I will double check everything before I start the engine. I keep forgetting to put this PCV hose back on. There's an O-ring there I don't want to pinch, so I pushed it in neatly first. Yeah. The battery is connected. I got power. Fuel pump needs to run for at least 5 seconds before starting the engine. The low pressure pump. I don't smell fuel leaking. Here's the pressure relief for the low pressure line. I forgot stuff. This vacuum line needs to go in here. This vacuum line needs to go into this tab. All the lines are routed somewhere. Let me start it up. Yeah, lines are dry, so it takes a little bit of cranking, but it's not recommended to crank without fuel in the high pressure pump. I'm smelling for fuel for a while. I'm checking for oil leaks before I put it back together. Of course, I got to check engine light. Let's see what the codes are. P2279, 113, 98, 368. Oof. I had this camshaft sensor plug loose. I didn't notice that it wasn't plugged in on halfway, so that is coding. It is coding from an intake air leak, which is kind of strange. It's not doing it now. I wonder how that came about. Could have been the brake booster. I don't hear any leaks. And it's idling now nice. I'm letting it idle. We got to get this center fake firewall underneath. It goes this way. And what is notable is these bolts go through, and we need to put them blind. Then there's a wiring harness clip here, which we need to clip on the way down. There's another wiring harness clip here, and we need to replace the zip tie on this. The trick here is to push it in without unclipping any of the wiring while doing it. You can see where the wiring harness goes through this guy, and these bolt holes will line together. Now there's really no space for me to hook up that wiring harness there, which when you're removing it you need to pull it out on the way up because it's in a tight spot. I'm trying to start putting the bolts on, lining them up, and I'm thinking I'm just using these first because I don't remember which one was which. So yeah, this looks like it goes through here. The right side bolt on, screw this, screw that. It is there. Okay. because I found a trick. I'm using this extra long thing shaft screwdriver to push it in. Over there. A bolt here. 2 bolts facing up. And 1 bolt here. And what needs to happen next is this wiring harness pass through, which I conveniently cut, which doesn't need to be cut, goes back here. So zip tie here. See, I tore that insulation a little bit. I could not find a way to do it without tearing it. And I pulled this vacuum hose out of its bath here. I'm putting it back on. This center fake firewall piece is the reason why any sane person would just give up on this job. Lining this up is again extremely unpleasant because it is intention. Is it intentionally intention? I need to lift the lip of this panel. Sorry about the lighting, but I can't really help that a whole lot because I'm working in the dark here. These threads will strip very easily. There you go. More plastics, that's what we need. This passenger air filter intake cowl clips in with 3 clips. This piece and this piece sandwich this cowl piece. And when that is correct, this guy clips on here, on top, back here, here, here. These side pieces don't even need to come off technically, except that they do in practice. And the tab to the strut tower seem to have broken a bit. Right. The last cowls or fake firewalls, whatever you want to call it. Again, it has some tabs here and here. It goes under, over or under. Clippity clip. It's on. seal, weather seal there. Good enough. Who it's for. I was missing this one. And this one. One here. One here. One here. And these nuts to the strut tower, and these end pieces just clip on. I have all my hardware in, assembling the rest of the cowl. It goes so easy without the weather seal being on the way. Hood weather seal goes on.
Almost done?
Yeah. There's this intake. Plugs in just like that, making sure that everything is there. And then there's this most important part, because this shows what kind of car do you drive. Yep. And there it is. Everything is assembled. See how tight it is there with that fake firewall on. So that has to come out for this job. I'm trying to list all the tools I used. I used a couple of sizes of torque wrenches with the correct range and reach, a couple of ratchets, various extensions, a 10mm and 8mm sockets, socket adapters, E8 and E10 torque, reverse torques, a few different sizes of Torx bits from T15 to T40, couple of regular wrenches, crowsfoot extensions 19 and 7, ratcheting wrenches 10mm and 8mm, cutters, crummy pliers, various screwdrivers, Phillips head and flathead. I use a chisel for some reason, I forget what it was. But magnets, extended magnets to pick up dropped balls and tools, marker, a simple OBD2 reader, a magnetic cup, a couple of these, and this huge thing for pushing the last bit of wiring harness back in. And I believe this is literally all. Of course, I use tapes in addition. And A lot of rags, gloves, cameras, but yeah, basically this is probably, if you are about to do this, this stuff is in your garage. If it's not, then, you know, are you sure you really want to do this? That's all for the show. See you next time. Next time I'm going to be fixing something else, or I'm going to be breaking something else, or we're going off-roading. Check it out.